Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, we're going to get you some help to prepare your income tax. But first, how about prison closings and the firing of a cabinet secretary? And we'll get to all of that after these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Welcome back to the program. Well, there's a lot going on in the state of Pennsylvania. We're going to skip what's going on nationally. We don't have 2 hours to even get into what President Trump is doing. But let's start, first of all, sitting across from me is Katie Meyer. She's with WITF, and Mark Levy. He's with the Associated Press. All right, Mark, for the last, 6 weeks, prisons closing, prison. There were originally 5, then you hear 2. So give us the latest update on the prison closings in the state.
So just after the new year, the Department of Corrections said, we're trying to save some money. We have a huge budget deficit in the state of Pennsylvania. Here's a list of 5 prisons. We're going to close 2. 3 weeks later, they are telling us now that they will close one prison only. I just scooped myself, and they're going to close the Pittsburgh prison. It's been closed before between 2005 and 2007, and lawmakers tell me that they spent $32 million to reopen it with upgrades in 2007.
Now, let me get this straight. They spent $32 million to reopen it, and they're closing. I guess we'll find out if they plan. There's a structure there. I mean, what can you use a prison for? I don't have a clue. It's not something I know anything about.
Yeah, the Corrections Secretary, John Wetzel, says it's very hard to sell a prison to get some sort of reuse out of it. Yeah. And in this case, this structure was built in the 1880s, if my memory is correct. So it's a really old,
I think our producer said it could be the oldest prison in the state that's still, I'm sure we had them earlier than the late 19th century, but maybe the oldest functioning one right now.
Maybe the oldest in the country, in the world. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows? Yeah. Well, I mean, this is really surprising, but this is all about, and we're going to get to this in a bigger way in the next segment. But this is all about the budget in the state, right?
It's all about the budget in the state. They're trying to save money. The governor has said that he's not going to seek a broad-based, a major tax increase to balance the budget for the first time in 3 years. Most of his tax increases have been rejected by the Republican legislature. Yeah. So he's looking for ways to squeeze spending. And we have a shrinking inmate population because they're working hard to keep people on parole rather than sending technical parole violators back to prison. And crime rates are going down.
Yep, very good. All right, let's talk about something that you've been reporting. Gary Tennis heads the drug and alcohol program in the state. They said he was fired for what reason initially?
Well, they didn't give a reason. The Wolf administration,
that's right. Yeah. They don't talk about personnel matters.
No, they don't talk about personnel matters, and that's the only statement that they've given. But yeah, Gary Tennis, the now former secretary of the Drug and Alcohol Programs Department
program
in the state.
Okay.
Yeah, so Tennis was fired 2 days ago now, very suddenly. And that same morning, an article had come out in the Reading Eagle that had alleged he had overly close ties with a lobbyist named Deb Beck. She's a very treatment lobbyist who's powerful in the state. Mm-hmm. The article had alleged, and Tennis denies this, the article alleged that he went to her to oversee a hiring decision. He had sought her approval for the decision. Now, Tennis denies that. He says she met with the hire, but the hire had already been
So
cleared.
let me get this straight. The point that he was fired, the point that initially we think he was fired was that he had to get kind of a pre-clearance from a lobbyist before he hired this individual. And
that was what people initially assumed.
That's what I thought. Yeah, go ahead.
But that's not what happened, according to Tennis.
Tennis, what's he say?
So he says that this is because he had irreconcilable differences with Governor Tom Wolf about the future of the department. And this is not confirmed by the Wolf administration. This is what Tennis says, and it's still technically classified. Yeah. But since he's no longer a government employee, he can tell us. He says that the Wolf administration wanted to combine the Department of Drug and Alcohol, which is the department that oversees the opioid epidemic. They do a lot of prevention with that. He wants to consolidate them back down to a bureau, which they were 5 years ago, and put them back into the Department of Human Services, which is the largest and most expensive department in the state government. And so that's why Tennis said, I will either be fired or quit.
The one thing that I've noticed over the years, I mean, we've had all kinds of institutions closed, Mark. You've written and covered some of those. In and of itself, to close a hospital, I mean, that's a state facility or a state school, Scotland. I mean, that's not entirely new, but this does seem to be intimately related to. Is it really about efficiency? How come this doesn't come up until we have a budget shortfall? You know what I mean?
Well, look, it feels rushed. Lawmakers say they feel like the administration is rushing into this. Now, the Corbett administration closed 2 prisons in 2013.
Right.
And they sort of sprang it on everybody. Now, the Department of Corrections was trying to give lawmakers a longer runway on this by rolling it out over a 3-week period. Lawmakers are still upset about it. And, what plays into that is the Corrections Officers Union is pressing lawmakers to oppose this. Their employees depend on these jobs.
They had a rally.
They had a rally.
Week, yeah.
You have, local economic folks who say this will be a devastating blow if our prison closes. You have businesses that supply these prisons, whether it's food, whether it's clothing, anything, pencils, pads, whatever, and they get hurt by that. So it becomes an uproar all on its own.
We're going to run to a break, but we're going to get into the bigger issues in the budget, and that's going to be the dominant story in the state. I'm chatting with Katie Meyer and Mark Levy. We'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, now celebrating 100 years as the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, we're chatting with 2 state reporters about a number of important issues in the state. We talked about the firing of a cabinet officer, Gary Tennis, and drug and alcohol. We've also talked about the prison closings, down to 1 prison closing. That, of course, big news this past week, and we'll see where that all goes. But, Katie, I'm going to start with you. The state's deficit has now grown, both this year's deficit and the so-called structural deficit. Where does it all stand?
It has. So we've had various estimates from the Independent Fiscal Office, and they just had a new report out yesterday saying that it's gone up by about $250,000. So now we're now, for this fiscal year, so 2016-17, we're now up to, what is it?
700, I heard.
$714 million. So that's an additional chunk of money. And then for the structural deficits this year and next year, we're up to almost $3 billion.
They don't deal with it by the end of the next fiscal year, not the 2 fiscal years, I guess we can say, whatever.
It's going to keep growing.
Yeah, we're talking about real money, Mark.
That is serious money. It's serious money when you're not going to raise the sales or income tax to deal with it. I don't think there's a person in the Capitol building who sees a way to cut your way out of this. Of course, this structural deficit has been building since the end of the recession. The legislature has been unwilling to raise, to go down the path of a major tax increase to deal with it. And we're seeing higher costs for pensions because the state wasn't paying for them years ago. We're seeing higher costs for care for the poor. We're seeing higher costs for prison inmates.
Yep. Now, Katie, we also have to think about it that the 2018 elections are underway.
That is true. They are indeed.
And Governor Wolf is not formally announced, but it's obvious that he's running for re-election. You have lawmakers, and it looks like we could be in for another huge budget standoff. is there any evidence that that's not likely to be the case?
I think most of the evidence points towards that could very well be the case. The only two people so far officially in the race are Governor Wolf, obviously, and then Senator Scott Wagner, who's a conservative Republican. And so there's going to be...
You can't say it. Trump-like, I can say a Trump-like figure. I'm not saying that in
He's been compared to
any
Trump.
demeaning way, just that it's going to be a lively campaign. Go ahead.
It is, and it's going to make things tougher for Tom Wolf to try to put his foot down on any sort of tax increases, which he said he won't do.
Yeah. If I got this right, in the last 10 years, 7 budgets have been late. Now, not, late to the point where the voters have become riled up. But you've covered many of these, and now we've got a governor who's apparently said, "I'm not going to propose a general tax hike, but I'm going to make these cuts, and I'm going to put pressure on you to do something about it." Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think the widespread perception in the Capitol is that the governor has decided to go down a path where he will squeeze spending as much as humanly possible and force the legislature to make the decision about whether they can accept that,
right,
or whether they're, for the first time that we've had this, long-term structural deficit, whether they're going to go down the path of a major tax increase.
Now, Democrats in the affected districts, when they were talking about prisons, and if the governor does other consolidations and other cutbacks, he runs a risk, doesn't he, of getting both Democrats in his own party and Republicans riled up.
Oh, absolutely. I think Democrats generally do not want a lot of spending cuts, and Republicans think Wolf's playing a game with them.
Yeah.
So he can't.
You all have reported that.
Yes.
I mean, that they've said that. Go ahead.
People have said that. And in the prison hearings, you were hearing that. It's like, why is this happening? A lot of people think that it is a political move, and it seems to be. But again, they have denied that. They've said the prison closings are not a political move. They've said that this is just, population's lowering down. So it all seems political because this all goes back to the budget.
Yeah. Go ahead.
It doesn't look good, like Katie says, coming in the midst of the governor saying we're going to squeeze spending, we're not going to raise taxes. Mm-hmm. But to be fair, this comes during a multi-year effort to shrink the prison population by keeping more people on parole. The Corrections Department says our projections show that the prison population is going to keep shrinking by another 1,000 over the next 4 years. So, to be fair to them, they are working with a trend that has been happening, and that they are working to continue to keep it happening. Crime trends are down. Courts are sentencing fewer people to state prison.
Right.
And look, we've already closed a couple prisons because of this, overarching multi-year concept.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
And, go ahead.
Now, one last question. They still are over $100 million short on the budget to begin with because they were supposed to do expansion of gaming. They put the revenue in, the legislature that is, and they didn't expand gaming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've talked to a lot of the new gaming chairs who think it's probably impossible at this point that they can get that revenue in this fiscal year. And in fact,
that's an understatement. Go
and
ahead,
the IFO doesn't even factor in that $100 million into their budget estimates.
All right, thanks for the great update. Keep doing what you do, and I'll try to get through the next segment of the program, but thanks for coming on. All right, when we come back, we're going to get you some help doing what? Preparing your tax. Yes, it's tax season, and we'll do that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania, and by the Pennsylvania Coal Alliance, representing companies involved in America's most affordable, reliable energy source. To learn more, visit pacoalalliance.com.
Well, I don't think it gets any better than this if the Internal Revenue Service has a program in effect to help you prepare your taxes. I think I understand that. Joining me to explain how you can make this opportunity available to you is Patrick Conway. Pat to us, he's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association, and Amy Srignoli. Do I got that right?
You got it.
See, Srignoli, I get that. She's the CEO of the Belco Community Credit Union. Well, Pat, let me start with you. Volunteers that the IRS helps select, I guess, helps you prepare your income tax. And what's it cost?
It's there's no charge.
That's what I mean. Go ahead.
That's right.
Start explaining this so we get it.
It's a great program. Many of our credit unions are host facilities, but it's an IRS-sponsored program, and volunteers in the community throughout the country will meet with qualified individuals who need help with their taxes. Generally, I think it's $54,000 in annual income or less.
Right. So
and they help them with their tax return.
Low and moderate incomes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and your report here says you had, and this is stunning, 81,000 volunteers in 13,000 sites, and you help over 3 million people, or they do.
That's across the country.
Yeah, I don't think it was in here in Pennsylvania, but go ahead.
Belco Community Credit Union is a site that allows
wonderful.
volunteers to come in and do tax preparation for individuals who sign up and are eligible based on the income criteria to have their taxes prepared for free.
And what organization would better know your income, right, than the IRS? If anybody would know it, right, if you're going to, level and be honest with you. So let's talk about this. It's free, and fill us in on this. There's some other aspects, earned income tax and child tax. It's complicated, right?
Well, I think a lot of the focus with the volunteers is on tax credits that may be available that they leave on the table. So a lot of folks may not be aware, that they have tax credits, and the folks that are trained by the IRS to offer this service are familiar with the tax credits, and they really can focus on saving, saving people money when they file their tax returns.
Yeah, when you think about it, I mean, it is extraordinarily complicated, and I guess if you just, depending on how you how you file, whether you use the long form versus just the short form, but now with federal and state programs and the ability to deduct in so many different ways, we all need help.
Well, the earned income tax credit in particular is pretty interesting because a lot of people don't realize they're eligible for it, and it is a credit right back to the bottom line.
Yeah.
So it's refundable credits that you're eligible for based on your income and the number of dependent children that you have.
Yeah, and people don't, if you don't include it, which you're legally entitled to, you just lose the money.
Right, and those tax credits are made available for a reason, but if folks don't realize they're eligible, they can't take advantage of it.
Yeah, the other aspect is that you do this electronically, right?
Correct. You come in, you make an appointment with an individual who goes online then and files electronically for you. So it's very quick, very easy. You spend about an hour with the tax preparer going through your W-2s and your personal information. Taxes are filed right there that night on the spot. And there's also a website if you're someone who's a little more proficient and you can go online and do your own taxes. It allows you to submit electronically for free as well.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to talk about your sponsorship, and we'll get into a little more into this earned income tax credit, which is common and popular, and people want to make sure they take advantage of it. Back in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, advancing quality, improving lives. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Business Council and by the Pennsylvania Business Council Education Foundation.
Welcome back. We're talking about an internal revenue service that provides volunteers to help individuals, low and moderate income individuals, prepare their income tax for free. We're going to put up on the screen how you can get it, how you can log on and get information about it. But we have a number of sites, places you can go right here in central Pennsylvania, and for our viewers and on other stations around the state, get on that website. I'm sure it's there, right?
All 16 sites are listed out on the website.
Wow.
We should probably remind individuals, too, when you're coming in to have your taxes prepared, make sure you're bringing your W-2s. You want to bring a Social Security card and an ID to show your identity is verified before those taxes get filed by the preparer.
Yep. And you're the credit unions within your organization are doing this at no charge, providing the sites, right?
Correct. Many credit unions, it's really a part of the credit union philosophy, helping people with the financial aspects of their lives and really just providing, a free service to those that need it to help them with tax preparation. So many credit unions and other financial institutions are involved in hosting these training sessions, which is great.
Yeah.
We partner with the United Way on this initiative, and there are a lot of other organizations in the community along with credit unions that are providing the sites and providing volunteer preparers.
Now, one of the things you addressed earlier had to do with the earned income tax credit, which is, a little complicated, and a fairly large number of Pennsylvanians pay that, right?
The Earned Income Tax Credit is available to individuals based on their income, and the number of credits that they're eligible for depends on the number of children that they have, dependent children. And it is an income tax credit, so that it's credited back to you regardless of whether you pay taxes or not. So you could be really earning a refund in spite of the fact of whether you've paid taxes or not.
And millions of dollars are probably lost because because people don't even know about it or apply for it.
Correct. In Pennsylvania, 25% of people who are eligible for the tax credit don't know it and don't apply for it. So
wow,
a lot of help left on the table for consumers.
Yeah. So moving forward, we have about a minute left. Moving forward, is this program likely to expand? I mean, I was stunned actually by the number of volunteers. 81. I didn't know 81,000 people understood the tax code. I mean, it's really quite complicated, as we all know. Go ahead.
I think we're really only limited by the numbers of volunteers that we can get to do them. There are always going to be consumers out there that need this type of assistance and need our help. So if you know someone or there's someone out there that might have an interest in learning how to do this, it'd be great to get more volunteers.
Yep. And your organizations, you'll probably expand the number who provide the sites over the next couple of years, which is what you do with the student programs, right?
Correct. It's another great program, and as Amy said, and Amy has been a volunteer too. It's a great program.
There you go. All right, thanks for coming in. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.